One, two, three, one, two, three. Woo, woo, woo. And we're back. Who is happy to see me again on the stage? You! Woo! All right, so this talk is going to be in English. We have international guests from Australia, and we also have a Czech guest from Olomouc who will also present in English together with me. So this presentation was finished last night at 11 p.m. I will say it outright so you know what you're dealing with. We came back from a 5-day-long journey around South Bohemia. We were traveling around the region, experiencing local food, local activities, and basically trying to figure out if South Bohemia is a sustainable destination, if it's a destination that is viable for tourists who are looking for sustainable activities. Philip mentioned that there will be 4 influencers on the stage. I don't consider myself an influencer. I was just tagging along and showing them around, but it was a great thing for me. You know, I work at the Czech tourism office in New York, and we send people on press trips, you know, every now and then, and there's only a few chances for me to actually go on the trip like this and be a part of it. So I learned a lot, and we had a fantastic experience. So meet the team behind this trip. So I already introduced myself, and now I will probably pass it on to Jared and Alicia, who have a blog called Nomadasaurus, and we would like to hear from you guys.
Cool. Well, hey everyone, I'm Jared.
I'm Alicia.
And yeah, we have a travel blog called Nomadasaurus, and then we have the Instagram account, and the Facebook account, and the Pinterest account, and the Twitter account, and the YouTube account, and Snapchat account, and all the other influencer platforms out there. But we don't really consider ourselves influencers. I guess content creators are the right word. Yeah. And essentially what we do is we travel around. We used to travel full time, and we go to places that seem really interesting, and we just create content for our audiences and use that content to promote unique and interesting destinations everywhere from Kazakhstan to Czech Republic, you know, and been doing it professionally for about 6 years now.
Mm-hmm. And I worked with you guys already 3 years ago. You came to the Czech Republic in 2016. We went together to Ostrava for the festival Colors of Ostrava, and then you traveled around Jeseníky and other places in the Czech Republic. I'm mentioning this because I think there is a very important aspect of working with influencers, and that's long-term relationships. So we hit it off pretty well 3 years ago. You know, you produce amazing content, and that's why I felt you are the right fit for this campaign.
Awesome. Thank you.
Last but not least, I was really excited to have Magdalena from Czech Vibes on board, because she's a great videographer. She's the 50% of the Czech Vibes duo. She creates stunning videos, and please tell us something.
Is the mic on? Do you hear me properly? Okay. My name is Magdalena, and I am a part of a duo called Czech Vibes, and I'm a videographer, and we also share our travels on Instagram, mainly to communicate with our audience. And I just joined Alicia, Jared, and Tirka on this trip to basically create a whole video from this experience. So thank you guys for inviting me, and it was great.
Awesome. Magdalena is usually, you know, very humble. She doesn't like to talk about everything they've done, but if you are using Instagram heavily, chances are that you are using one of their hashtags, Czech Vibes. That's something they started a few years ago, and now there is more than 100,000 Instagram photos that are tagged by this hashtag. And you also have a great amount of subscribers on YouTube, so really happy to have you on board. So what we do was actually mentioned here. It's blogging, photography, and videography, and everything in between. I don't know if you would like to add anything else besides this.
Well, yeah, just in general, what we tend to do is focus really heavily on SEO with our blog content, and that's a way for an audience that's beyond our social media followers to really find out about destinations, and that's one thing that we really focus on. We might put some photos on Instagram and Facebook and get some likes, but to us that doesn't necessarily lead to conversions of visitors coming to a place. Instagram can be very powerful if you use the right influence. I think Czech Vibes is a great example where the followers are very interested in Czech Republic. But for us, we're a global audience, so people are interested in unique places, which is where South Bohemia comes in. But for us, we do a lot of SEO. So the blog content that we'll do some very heavy keyword research. We'll find out what opportunities there are for people who are going to Google to find a different kind of vacation, people who've been to Czech Republic a couple of times perhaps to find somewhere new. And that's how we bring new readers and new followers to our brand and then send those people to hopefully South Bohemia in Czech Republic and to visit some of the amazing businesses we're going to hear about from Jirka soon.
Awesome. So this is something that we already touched on a little bit. Your experiences in the Czech Republic. So this is your 4th time in the destination. You've been all around to the east in Ostrava, Moravia, and then also to the north. You explored the National Park of Bohemia in Switzerland. And this is actually your 2nd time in South Bohemia. I believe you were in Český Krumlov a few years ago.
Yeah. Had to do it.
But we didn't explore beyond there, and we ran out of time, unfortunately, but we're happy to be back to explore it, definitely. Yeah.
And me and Magdalena know we've been around for 20 plus years, so we know the Czech Republic quite well. So South Bohemia trip, so it was an epic trip that took 5 days. We visited 5 different micro-regions throughout the whole destination. We started our journey in a region which is called Bohemian Canada, which was really surprising for you guys because you were like, why do you always have to come up with a name that refers to a foreign destination? So you've been to Bohemian Switzerland, now you've been to Bohemian Canada.
Yeah. Just waiting for Bohemian Australia next.
Yeah, so if someone has an idea where would be a good place in the Czech Republic for Bohemian Australia, please meet us at the press center if there is one, and
maybe some desert.
Maybe some desert. Yeah. So the day 2, we were traveling along the border to Novohradské hory, and we also visited the area around České Budějovice or Český Krumlov to be more specific. Day 3, we spent at Lipensko, around the ski resort in Lipno, together with Vojen, who was with me on the stage before. And the last 2 days we spent in the Šumava Mountains in the national park, but we also visited some of the less visited areas called Pošumaví. So, what did we do? What did we experience? What activities we've done, and what do we consider sustainable travel? So we did a lot of hiking, and the first thing we wanted to talk about was our hiking experience in Šumava National Park. And let's have a look at some of the images we were able to capture on the way. So this is our hike all the way up to the mountain of Třístoličník, or Dreisessel, or in English we would call it 3 stools. And what was the experience like in your own words?
Windy. It was windy up the top there.
At the top.
It was really beautiful. We've been lucky. We've been hiking in quite a few places around the world, and so we've seen a lot of diverse landscapes. We were impressed with what we found up there. The rock formations were really unique. The trail was well marked, and it was easy to get around, which I think is important for a lot of maybe less adventurous people that like to get outdoors and try something new anyway. And I thought it was a really interesting walk, and the place that we went to afterwards on the Golden Trail, historically I thought was extremely interesting.
Yeah.
So for someone who's been to 70 plus countries in the world, who hiked mountains that are 3,000, 4,000 meters high, was it still worth it to
yeah, definitely, absolutely.
to hike in our baby mountains that are only 1,000 and few hundred meters old?
It was a beautiful walk. Obviously, you don't compare Czech Republic to Patagonia. They're different, and I think that's what makes this place so magical. People can go trekking in the Alps, in Austria, and through the Dolomites and stuff, and they'll get one experience, but you come to Czech Republic and you'll have a different experience. And I thought it was a really interesting place.
So the original plan was to hike all the way to the highest peak of Šumava, the Plechy mountain, but there was 1 meter of snow, which made it a little too difficult to do it. So after Třistoličník, we went to check out the Golden Trail, which is an 80-kilometer long trail, which used to be popular for salt trading.
Yeah.
So we actually started the trip in Germany and hiked from there to the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was awesome. Like, for me, if you showed me this photo like years ago and said this is Czech Republic, I would not believe it. So it was amazing to be out in nature, to experience this area of Czech Republic and just see all this beauty you have in the south. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I live in the Czech Republic, I really never heard of this particular road. So it was quite interesting to explore it. And we just discovered this interesting part of the forest, which looked like a little bit like from the Game of Thrones with the big stones. And yeah, I could imagine it in a very foggy day to create something special.
And obviously the history as well. It's very fascinating. Yeah, very fascinating.
I also mentioned that we were crossing the borders. So what we did, we were doing some fun activities at the borders, something that we call coffee without borders. So we found a border stone where we made a cup of coffee and enjoyed what Europe is offering to us, and that means traveling free from one country to another within the Schengen area.
And sometimes you need to stop and take your surroundings in, so it was perfect.
Yeah. So next thing, and that was actually our day one, that was the e-bike trip around Bohemia in Canada. Yeah. I personally, I am an avid cyclist. I love cycling, and I was never into e-bikes. I thought, this is not the thing for me, but I actually found out it's a lot of fun and also pretty sustainable. So for example, my outtake from the e-biking in Bohemia, Canada was that you can really come to South Bohemia, find a hotel, park your car there, and hop on an e-bike and basically travel around the whole area. How did you enjoy that day full of cycling in Bohemia, Canada?
I thought it was a great introduction to the region. It was, our first day. We took the train and the bus, and then another train to get down here from Prague. And Bohemia, Canada has got such an interesting name for us who have been to Canada and lived in Canada and have a great fond memory of the place. And then to come here and see why it was called Bohemia, Canada, riding through these beautiful pine forests, it was a really, really amazing time. And the e-bike experience itself, again, something we've never done, but e-bikes turn out, they're pretty cool, as you can see. Look how awesome I look riding that thing, I should be an e-bike model.
And one massive thing going for the country is how easy you can get around on bicycles. Like, we're not that bike friendly in Australia, so this is one massive positive for as travellers to come here and be out in nature, take it at our own pace, be sustainable, like eco-friendly as well, and just see the countryside. So it was an amazing experience.
Yeah. As you see, we are really into boomerangs. So there wasn't a day without 5 to 10 boomerangs from every destination. Actually, when I'm looking at it now, you guys might not know it, but maybe some of you in the audience, you remember that promotional spot for South Moravia, which didn't go really well. And I remember there were also people with the bicycles that were moving in this very same manner. I don't know who remembers it, but yeah, that's fun. All right, tasting local produce. That was another fun thing to do for me. I travel back home 2 times or 3 times a year. I'm permanently based across the ocean. So coming back home and being able to taste slice of home is great. Although I have to say that after 5 days of eating 3 times a day, mainly very meat heavy meals and a lot of deers and wild boars and everything else. It was kind of too much. How about you guys?
Yeah, we just had to take a bit more relaxed dinner yesterday after the week, so we just had some veggies. But it was really cool to see how the gastronomy is developing and all these diverse offers. Because of course I visited South Bohemia even before many times, and the first keyword which comes to my mind is, of course, biking, and then also the gastronomy. So yeah, cool experience again.
So we actually decided to show the only vegetarian thing that we ate on this trip, and this one was very special. That was on our fourth day. It was a dinner, and on the day 5 we had a great breakfast at this village bed and breakfast called Uvišaty, where we experienced something that is called home cooking, and for me personally that was a great highlight of the trip. Apart from home cooking, we introduced you to something what we call Czech barbecue, and this has become quickly a big trend. The word špekáček was basically the main buzzword of this whole trip. We actually, when we were sitting around the campfire, we were thinking, how many people tagged špekáček on Instagram? So how many hashtags you can find with špekáček? And we were debating, is it 10,000, 7,000? It's only 1,800. So, but after our špekáček experience, I'm sure it's gonna explode, and there will be at least
it'll be trending in no time.
It'll be
trying the local food in the area was actually a highlight of the trip. Food is a massive part of a country's identity as well. So it was amazing to try that, and even having this local, the Czech barbecue. To you as locals, it might be like, it's just on the fire, but to us it was amazing, and listening to stories from the locals about how they did this growing up. So it's more than just food, it's conversation and also experience. It was awesome as well.
Yeah, and it was particularly interesting for me to see everything, the food as well as the architecture and the way of living in the countryside, basically from a foreigner's perspective, which makes me appreciate my country even more, because now I look at it slightly differently. So yeah.
So what we did next was a waterfall hike. The only thing we didn't have is the yellow jacket in order to recreate some of the famous Instagram pictures.
We'll come back with one next year.
I consider that a major Instagram failure of this trip. No yellow jacket, and we actually had a guide with us who was telling us about the history of the area, etc. And then we came to the waterfall, and he was like, we need to go, because this is what happens when you bring a couple of Instagrammers to a waterfall. So they spend there at least 30-45 minutes and trying to get the best shot using different filters and videos. This is my favorite. I think you took it, Jared, and in general I think it was a pretty nice hike in very close from the town of Hrady, in a beautiful valley called Trčino Dolí. All right, more adventure, more activities. There's the scooter downhill ride and a treetop walk in Lipno. That was my favorite because it was very active. We did a lot of fun stuff.
I'm just influencing over here, as you can see, just trying my hardest.
Exactly. So this is Jared influencing.
One amazing thing I loved about this attraction is that it was accessible to everybody, whether it was families with prams, a person of disability. It was amazing. They really thought of everything building this structure, and that was amazing.
Yeah, I think this treetop walk concept, I believe you were saying it may have started in Germany, but Czech Republic has really developed quite a few amazing ones. We visited one up in the Jeseniki Mountains, and that was great. The fact that you guys have these, and it's so interesting, as you can tell from the photos, like the photos from Christina Tan that we got to see in the last one. Like they are so, the architecture of them and the design is really unique, and it gives families, adults, kids, everyone a chance to get up there above the trees, and hear what they're doing in Lipno. They're introducing bird identification sounds and little information plaques as you walk up, and making it a really wholesome experience. That was, to me, that was a really, really good highlight.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, it was my first time to visit those this kind of attraction. And I was also, you know, nicely surprised from the way it was curated. I learned a lot. For example, I learned how long does it take to grow one single match in a forest. What's your best guess? How long does it take to grow one match in a forest? 6 hours. So next time, when you light a match, you'll be like 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours. All right, coming up next, there's a little delay. Oh yeah, that was the downhill scooter, and another favorite, boomerang. Again, you know, another activity I haven't done before, like downhill scooters. I thought it's a, you know, thing for tourists, but we were tourists, you know, at that time, and I really enjoyed it. And those were all the activities, you know, we experienced, things we visited, you know, hikes we did, and you know, fun things we experienced. But for me personally, and I think we will agree on this, the most important part of this trip were people we met. And I'm saying this without no cliche, because the people that you know, welcomed us at their homes and talked passionately about what they do, that was the main highlight of the trip. So these are the 9 businesses that kind of, you know, stuck in our head and were probably the main highlight. As you see, we visited a lot of animal farms, different workshops, and met a lot of you know, great people. Every one of them shared a different story. You know, how difficult it was, you know, to start building, you know, their place and their offering. What is, you know, let's talk about those businesses we met, and what were our impressions. Where would you like to start, guys? What was your...
Okay, so in Australia, what we would call these businesses are underdogs. They're small businesses, and they're really focused on community and organic local produce, and they're trying to do their best in what is an increasingly tough world in these particular industries, obviously with commercial farming and you know, mass production with ceramics, for example, and I'll probably touch a little bit more on that in the sustainability part soon. But for me, it was just really interesting to get to meet these people and see how much love and passion they put into their businesses. You know, like for them, you know, they welcomed us into their homes, into their you know, shops, and gave us tours of their property, and it was, you could tell how proud they were of what they've created. And we did get to hear a little bit about, you know, the hardships that they've been experiencing in this place. You know,
seasonal as well.
Yeah, and with South Bohemia being a, you know, a emerging destination as opposed to, you know, Prague and Český Krumlov, which we all know, you know, with over-tourism there, how things are kind of shifting. It was, you know, these guys have got amazing potential, and even though they're not, from what we could tell, they're not experiencing dramatic growth and like an explosion of visitors immediately, it's not deterring them from really trying to like step forward and be leaders in their communities and kind of raise the whole economy of each village. And it was great to see these you know, men and women doing amazing work in South Bohemia.
Definitely.
This is also one of the main goals of you know, our trip. We want to help these businesses to get more visitors, more people who are looking for sustainable activities, and you know, through your blog, through the videos, and you know, through the content we are publishing online, we are trying our best to highlight and, you know, honestly talk about our experience, because, you know, not everywhere you can really have maybe like an ideal experience. So I think it's always also important to mention that not everything is working great. We actually visited the workshop in Maříž, and we made our own cups.
Oh, is that them?
Yes, and I just heard that it got delivered, and I haven't opened it before to look at it, so this is going to be live action.
Oh,
First
nice.
one, yeah.
That's
I think that's you, Jared, right?
Yeah, that's me.
Very nice.
Good job, good job.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
this was actually the first day. We came around like 7 p.m. after 35 kilometers of biking. So hungry, it was already after dark. We ate and we thought, okay, now we're going to go to bed and sleep. And the lady was like, let's do some ceramics. And it was like 10 p.m. But it was fun, you know, we really tried hard to put all the creativity into it. Let's maybe show one more example, I'm curious. Oh yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
That's you, Magdalena, right?
Yeah.
That worked out well.
Oh yeah, I can see an artist here. So if you're interested in our art and potentially hire us as ceramics maker, please, you know, come forward to the stage after the presentation, and we can negotiate a reasonable fee for our skills.
I'll do it for Spakacek, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you know, in exchange for 1 kilo of spekaceks, that will do. Yeah, we really had a great time. So, for example, at Statek u Medvěda, which is located in a small village called Nová Pec, we met a guy, Mira, who is basically renovating an old hunting cottage, which is, I don't know how old it is. My guess is like 150 years at least.
Yeah.
And he called it Statek u Medvěda because it's called, okay, it could be like farmhouse by the bear, because that's the place where they kept the body of the last bear that was shot in Šumava in, I think, the middle of 19th century. He also showed us how he is swinging his axe and working on some of the woodwork in his building. So he's, you know, using hand tools and, you know, working manually on every single piece that he's like putting in this, you know, place of his. The goat farm, that was a fun thing to do. Like, I think all the animal activities were so great.
It was an amazing selection, and as a tourist coming to this area, this would be a perfect piece of a little bit of everything from local farming to ceramics to weaving. Like it was a great combination. Yeah, and definitely there's a route there that could easily be created to easily get that all in, and it would be an amazing experience for somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, actually at the goat farm, every goat has got a unique name. Like there was like
that was awesome.
50 goats, and everyone like Adelka here and other names, which was really like really nice to see that people really care about their animals,
definitely.
and
For
it's
me-
made with love. Yeah.
I consider myself a city boy because I have, you know, lived in the cities for at least the past 15 years, although I come from a small town in North Bohemia. But, you know, getting in touch with those animals was great for me. It felt also very therapeutical. So
Just to hear the noises.
yeah, just
Yeah.
hearing the noises,
It was
especially the sheep, they're crazy. All right, so those were some of the businesses we visited. Now maybe let's go to the last part of this talk, and that's, you know, what we think is sustainable tourism, and if South Bohemia is a sustainable destination.
Yeah.
So, Jared, what's your take on sustainability?
Yeah, I think there's a growing trend for sustainable tourism in 2019, and we've seen this kind of increasing over the last few years. And like a general definition, sustainable tourism is the concept of visiting somewhere as a tourist and trying to make a positive impact on the environment, society, and economy. And we have seen the positives that will come out of that, and some real amazing benefits in certain places, and this is where I think South Bohemia has got a lot of potential. And we've seen the negatives of what tourism can do. We heard a talk about Český Krumlov yesterday, and having been to Český Krumlov, we love it. We think it's absolutely beautiful, but there is an element of over-tourism there. Sustainable tourism to us is one of the main reasons we travel to the places we do. You know, we love visiting the main attractions. We love going to Prague and to Paris and to London and all the main bucket list, you know, cities and destinations. But it's getting into these really small, unique villages and seeing an interesting, authentic way of life, which I think is such an important element of any kind of travel. And that's where South Bohemia has got a lot of potential. Now, in terms of environment, to be completely honest, I wouldn't consider South Bohemia to be an ecotourism destination. And I think we had a bit of a discussion about this the other day, and I'm not sure if it might be a lost in translation sort of thing, but there was a lot of talk of ecotourism getting thrown around in South Bohemia. To us, ecotourism is more environmentally focused tourism, so using renewable energies and working with protecting natural environments, for example. But I didn't see too much of that in South Bohemia. I didn't see anything negative. There was no detrimental effects on the environment anywhere we went, and the local people there are very proud of where they are from. And the Shumava National Park, for example, it's all very well protected. But for me, the idea of sustainable tourism in South Bohemia really focuses on society and economy. Yeah. And I think you can see it with the communities there, that they all they get together and they really support each other. And we went for, now I'm really bad with Czech village names, I'm sorry, but the last day where we went to the goat farm and to the loom place, the name of the village was... We'll come back to that. But there were so many amazing places we visited in the 5 days. But for us, that was an example of where communities are really getting together and really supporting each other, and that's the society impact of sustainable tourism in South Bohemia. And the economic impact is obvious. There is a lot of potential for businesses to really grow and to allow themselves to provide for not just their families, but hire employees and hire people from villages, and really kind of bring this positive influx of tourism dollars and through handicrafts and farm visits and selling local produce, and it's really going to benefit everyone in the region of South Bohemia. And I think that's, to me, sustainable tourism in South Bohemia, that's where I really would focus on, is society and economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What I, for example, liked a lot was that every place we visited wasn't actually built on a green field, out of nowhere. Those were usually properties that were like repurposing old abandoned buildings, because as we know, this is the land that was, just on the border of the Iron Curtain. There was a lot of changes in the borderland. After the war, the Germans were pushed out, and the land, became kind of empty. A lot of houses were abandoned. The resettlement wasn't, complete and successful. So for me, it was great to see that, every one of those businesses we visited, they actually took this like old property that was, built and is in harmony with the landscape for, centuries, and they basically brought it back to life. So that was really, really great.
We also met. I feel down there. One experience we had. We met a lady called Ivana, and she actually, she's very. I was blown away actually with her tourism. Tourism.
Just like drive.
Yeah, drive. Thank you. She actually there's a route you can do, and she named each, each experience like this on the route, and you could do a drive or you could do a bike ride and do it over a few days, which was amazing. And this just showing community-based tourism is so important in this area, as well as, so each one individually, it would be very hard to survive in the tourist area. So if you combined everybody together with something like this, a route, it easily would be beautifully executed. And yeah, that's one thing that I felt. That's a positive just there. A bit ahead of myself, but that was really impressive, because community-based tourism and getting together as one is so important for not just here, for every country. Yeah.
We've basically seen like the activity of one person of business can have such a positive influence of other smaller businesses who are maybe struggling, and bring them really together to sustain the community was one of the things, of the highlights of my discoveries in this region.
Same with myself.
Yeah, basically leading by example. It takes one capable person in one region to kind of motivate other people around them and to build something great. So we found a lot of positives in South Bohemia. We kind of like summed it up that this trip was about, you know, seeing what the real Czech life is. Because many tourists, you know, who come to the Czech Republic each year from different countries of the world, they don't know what the Czech real life is, especially if they visit only Prague and then, you know, maybe they go to Český Krumlov for a day. So the itinerary that we did was really about slow travel, getting off the beaten path, and it was a great option to see something different. To be honest, this itinerary is not for someone who is visiting for the first time. You know, as a tourism person, I can tell you that most of the people who come for the first time, you can tell them 5 times a day that they should see something else than the highlights. They will be saying, yes, yes, I'm all about, you know, going off the beaten path. But, you know, in an hour, you will still, you know, see them eating trdelník at the Old Town Square in Prague. So, but for people who come for the second time and are looking for something new, something original, this is definitely for them. So, I already mentioned that we want to be completely honest and not only say everything was perfect, everything was amazing. So we want to talk about things that we saw as difficulties, and especially, you know, seeing it through your eyes, through a person who lives, you know, far away. I think it was great for me to realize what is this destination lacking. So we have a few points that we came up with. Would you like to touch on some of them?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about the transport because as someone who doesn't speak Czech, I don't really understand how I would be getting around to a lot of these places, and they seem very far and remote, but in reality they're actually quite close, and I understand there's an amazing train network to get around. But once you arrive in each little village, the only real way to get out and kind of see a lot of these other businesses would be to either have a bicycle or have your own car or walk a long way. And a lot of the guest houses we went to, except for maybe 1 or 2, from what I could tell, they didn't have any bicycles to rent. And I couldn't see anywhere in town to rent a bicycle. So you'd have to bring one from maybe Český Krumlov or Prague or here, České Budějovice. And that's something that I think is a big difficulty for someone who isn't a local, doesn't quite understand how to get around. You know, once Alicia and I put together our itinerary and put it up on our website, you know, we're going to be telling people, like, you're really either going to need to rent a car or bring a bicycle with you to get around to these places. And so for us, I think that is a difficulty that could very easily be turned into a positive by just implementing some things like maybe having bicycle, like a few of the main guest houses buying a couple of bicycles and allowing guests to use them, for example.
Yep. Next one, and that's maybe something for the local tourism authorities. There's really little information online or in visitor center that would be written in good English, and
also to find a guide. I did take some information down of local guides, but as a foreigner coming in again, who I don't speak Czech either, to get the most out of the area, I would hire a local guide because I would want to know about the goat farm, the buffalo, bison, things like that. And we had a local guide because we had the right contacts, but also finding someone in the area who can translate and be a guide as well. So that's somewhere where we come in as well. I did take details, so I, on our website, put that down as well, because that would be a massive positive, or if there's somewhere for information for accommodation and local guides as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know, like talking to locals was easy because we had Magdalena and myself, so we could always be, like the middleman and telling all the stories.
Yeah.
And in general, the language barrier was something that might be difficult for someone who comes from far away and needs to know some information. We personally. Found ourselves in a few interesting situations, like, for example, this one.
Too cute.
That was such a good experience. I love those goats.
Yeah, that was super cute. All right, we'll let the lady know how much fun that was. I'll use Google Translate. You have beautiful goats.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Máte krásné kozy.
Prosím.
Yeah, so this was a little staged, but it really happened, and you wouldn't believe how the lady looked at us. She was like, "What do I have?"
I wish you recorded it. We were away from these two, and I thought, oh, Google Translate, I've got internet, I can speak into and show the lady, and she just looked at me and
Pretty sure
horrified.
you said, I love your goats.
Yeah, I said, I love your goats, and then she was like,
Yep.
what?
So that was the first thing. You said, like, "I love your goats."
Yeah.
Miluji vaše kozy. I think that, once we have more information in English online, once people are able to have a conversation with, foreigners, the foreigners will be producing content about South Bohemia themselves.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be only influencers who will be talking about South Bohemia, but it will be actually people who visit it, and they will say they had a great time. They, spent an evening with a local, restaurant owner. They, sampled wine together and talked about, life in the Czech Republic and, wherever the person is coming from. So we put together a few key findings. So that's the most boring slide at the end of the presentation with a lot of words, but we kind of felt it's not enough to only say it verbally, but also to write it down. Jared, Alicia, would you like to present those? Because I feel like I've been talking too much.
Yeah. The first point, utilize influencer marketing, bloggers and content creators in media campaigns. I think to really help grow tourism and get information out there online, this is going to be an amazing tool that you guys can have. Now, I would personally, and this is kind of weird coming from an influencer, and I hate the word influencer, but I would not put such an emphasis on the influencer marketing because it's very quick and instant, put a photo on Instagram, you get some likes, and the next day an influencer or Instagram will put another photo from somewhere else and their followers will forget about it. But right now, South Bohemia, there's so little information online that you can have a lot of amazing potential by using bloggers and content creators such as YouTubers and video makers to come to your region and create content. And because there is so little information out there, almost anyone that comes down here and creates content is going to be beneficial for you. We're not talking about sending another person to Prague to write another things to do in Prague article when there's already 20,000 of them. This is something that if you guys are contacted by bloggers or YouTubers, you don't necessarily have to look at them and go, oh, they haven't got 100,000 followers, it's not worth my time or money. They're just getting any information out there right now in English or in German or in French or any of the major languages is going to be very beneficial for you guys. And that's where, utilize influencer marketing a little bit, but bloggers and content creators, video makers, YouTubers, they're going to be the ones that are really going to help your destination grow. Do you want to?
Definitely. From my videography point of view, I feel like that the businesses and the products we saw along the way has a great potential to be somehow developed on media like Instagram as well, because to create a visual identity on this type of media is really can basically boost the awareness of the business and the product or the accommodation. And as from my previous experiences, for example, only one picture can really boost the whole business. I remember we were creating this campaign in Slovakia for a treehouse accommodation, and we've really been lucky on the weather. We've had a very foggy forest in autumn, and we just created this one picture which was shared on their Instagram. They really started the Instagram, and just through this picture it was featured on many sites, and they just started basically the business upon this one picture on Instagram. So it's one of the stuff I really think it has a potential.
Yeah, I think Instagram does have a potential, and with this particular business, there was an element of luck to that. You know, the weather cooperated. It was probably shared at the right time. It was trending on Instagram. If you're going to use Instagrammers to promote your region, get a lot of them in. Have content constantly coming out on Instagram. Don't just do one a year, because it'll probably get buried. You might get lucky. You might have a piece go viral, and your business will take off. But how many photos get uploaded on Instagram every day? There's no guarantee. One destination we've worked with a lot in is Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah.
And we've seen tourism in Kyrgyzstan grow tremendously because of the sheer number of bloggers, Instagrammers, YouTubers that came. Because then it wasn't just one Instagram uploading a photo, it was hundreds.
Yeah.
And so that reaches a much wider audience, and your brand awareness will become a lot higher.
I know. I just wanted to add the second point there, promote the concept. There's more to Czech Republic than Prague and Český Krumlov. There is, absolutely, but I feel it is good to start from that hub to get tourists out of there. So, for example, they're the first hubs that they would go to and really demonstrate there that, hey guys, just, you know, stay longer, get out from this area and do the loop from here, because that is a base for them. That's where they, especially Prague, they fly into. Český Krumlov, they'll come down by the train from there. So it's to promote this area, you have to include those two big cities to get people out into the countries and push them out there as well. So that's definitely a good point too.
Do we have some questions on Slido, or we are Philip is merciless and he is going to cut us off?
Well, actually, there are two questions on Slido about. So we need. Oh, there are much more. Okay. So let's make like 2 or 3 of them, because we have a lag of time. So the first one, you should find hashtag boosty.
Okay.
And there are more than 5,000 pictures on Instagram. So you should do it after.
Well, that's another way how to coach Pekáček, but I'm afraid that but in this mix of boosty might be also some other content than food. So I wouldn't be really into it.
So one more. What do you think is the strongest platform today to promote destinations, and why?
YouTube and blogs.
Yeah, definitely YouTube.
I think social media is extremely important, and it should not be neglected. And we've heard of businesses who are booming in South Bohemia purely because of Instagram, for example. But social media comes and goes. You know, everyone remember MySpace? Did everyone have a MySpace account? Where's that now?
Gone.
You know, Facebook, we're seeing numbers really dropping on there. Snapchat is on its way out. Instagram, maybe next, you know. So don't put all your money into social media. Put it into evergreen content. And the 2 biggest search engines on the internet right now are Google and YouTube.
Yeah.
So I personally think if you have people, and not just bloggers, create your own content, which is a point we didn't touch on the last one, but make your own website. Learn about SEO and really get your own content on there, and then using videos on YouTube as well.
Evergreen content is the key. Yeah, it stays around forever. So, yeah.
Okay, so that's it.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you.
Hold on.